Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
From D.C. to Dearborn, the Biden administration sending aides to Metro Detroit to try to calm tensions with the local Arab American community over the lack of a ceasefire in Gaza. Thanks for joining us here at 5. I'm Kimberly Gill.
I'm Devin Skillian. Some of those community leaders are so upset with the White House they have opted out of taking part in these meetings. Sean Lay is live in Dearborn, getting reaction from those who did attend. What are we hearing so far, Sean?
We can start with who didn't attend. President Biden was not here, but did send a team of aides, Biden administration officials, the head of the U.S. Agency for International Development, the director of the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, and a deputy national security advisor. Kind of a secret meeting here in the Henry Hotel that we found out about. Meeting with them, Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, the majority floor leader for the state, State Rep Ibrahim Aish. Now, we were told the local leaders are here to really talk about lives impacted here and in Gaza. And the thought here is that the administration officials were here to talk or worried about votes. The Henry Hotel, the scene of protests of President Joe Biden and the Biden administration outside. Inside, some members of the Biden administration meeting with some Dearborn community members and political leaders in closed-door talks. The issue, the Arab American community has been loud and clear in their message. They have polled support for the president and will not be voting for the president in the upcoming primary. Many say they will no longer vote for the president at all. Imam of the Islamic Center of Detroit was invited to these meetings but is refusing to go as a Palestinian and American voter with family members killed in the conflict in Gaza. He says if President Biden does not call for a complete ceasefire in Gaza, there's nothing more to talk about.
It is completely tone deaf and disrespectful and insulting to have conversations about humanitarian aid with the same people that are bombing my people. Stop bombing my family, and then we can talk.
This week, this letter signed by Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hammoud and this long list of elected officials with this message. Let us be clear. We unequivocally demand that the Biden administration immediately call for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. We pledge to check the box for uncommitted on our ballots in the upcoming presidential primary election. Last week, the Biden administration sent President Biden's campaign manager to meet with local leaders. That move was seen as an insult.
That didn't go over very well. Everybody refused to meet with them. There were some people in political office who said, we'll meet with your policy people. So they ended up sending their policy people, and that's who some of the community members are meeting with.
Back here live, some protesters remain outside the Henry here, although these meetings ended about 2 hours ago. Ibrahim Aish from the State House majority floor leader said there's not going to be any follow-up meeting here with any administration officials unless there is a full ceasefire call by the president. In the meantime, other leaders, Dearborn Heights mayor was invited, said he's not going to come unless there is some kind of a full ceasefire call from the president. And local leaders telling us today, Devin and Kimberly, that they believe about 300,000 votes here in this area are vanishing or have vanished for President Biden on this very issue. Much more about what happened inside that meeting coming up at 6.
Yeah. All right, Sean, we'll see you then.
The EPA is on scene in Warren right now cleaning up a spill in Bear Creek. What exactly spilled is unclear at this hour. Test results are pending, but they believe it came from a now defunct industrial business. Mara McDonald is live in Warren. Mara, they're stressing, though, that the drinking water is safe.
Kimberly, exactly. That's what the mayor just told us. We came from a briefing with her. They want all the people in Warren to know their drinking water is fine. That said, they got a mystery on their hands out here. So here's the situation. This spill was discovered yesterday around 11:30. And Warren has its own, wastewater treatment plant. So they sent their staff out here and they started taking samples, okay? So they take the samples. They have, they test for the usual stuff that you'd find in this creek. Well, none of them came back positive, so they don't know what this is. They have sent samples off to the lab. They are expecting results on those sometime tomorrow. Because of the unknown nature of this, they have called in not only the state with Eagle, but now the EPA is out here on scene and in charge of the cleanup. And what we were told late this afternoon is that this is coming from now defunct business in what is essentially an industrial area. They are confident that they have stopped the leak. What they don't know, however, is what the volume of that was in this water and exactly how far it went. I think we're going to have a much firmer grasp on all of those probably by tomorrow when they get those test results back. We are live in Warren. I'm Mara McDonald, Local 4.
Okay, we know you'll keep us posted. Mara, thank you.
Quite a day in Washington. The Supreme Court hearing oral arguments that could determine whether former President Trump can run again for office or hold office again, all stemming from the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to keep the former president's name off of that state's presidential primary ballot based on his actions leading up to the January 6th riot at the Capitol. Alice Barr at the Supreme Court with more. Alice.
Good evening. The Supreme Court justices' ruling could be weeks away, but it was clear from their questioning today that a majority has serious questions about a state's ability to remove a presidential candidate from the ballot. Tasked with resolving a monumental political dispute, U.S. Supreme Court justices today appeared skeptical of a Colorado Supreme Court decision barring former President Trump from the Republican primary ballot on grounds he engaged in insurrection in trying to overturn the 2020 election, culminating in the January 6th Capitol attack.
For the first time in history, the attack was incited by a sitting president of the United States to disrupt the peaceful transfer of presidential power.
The Trump legal team argues he did not participate in the storming of the Capitol and that it did not qualify as an attempt to overthrow the government.
This was a riot. It was not an insurrection. The events were shameful, criminal, violent, all of those things, but it did not qualify as insurrection.
The justices questioned whether Congress should enact a national standard before states can invoke a provision of the Constitution's 14th Amendment that was adopted after the Civil War to prevent people who engaged in insurrection from holding office, and whether that provision even includes the president. Both conservative and liberal justices voiced concerns about allowing individual states to decide who is an insurrectionist.
A goodly number of states will say whoever the Democratic candidate is, you're off the ballot, and others for the Republican candidate, you're off the ballot.
I think that the question that you have to confront is why a single state should decide who gets to be president of the United States.
Former President Trump weighing in after listening to the arguments.
It's unfortunate that we have to go through a thing like that. I consider it to be more election interference.
A consequential case with the presidential election season already underway. The Supreme Court is hearing the case on an expedited schedule, and a ruling is expected within weeks. Colorado is one of more than a dozen states holding its primary on Super Tuesday, coming up on March 5th. From the U.S. Supreme Court, Alice Barr, Local 4.
All right, Alice. Now, also today, Special Counsel Robert Hur says there is evidence President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified documents, but the president is not going to face criminal charges. According to the report, investigators found Joe Biden's memory was significantly limited in interviews they conducted with him in 2023, and because of that, investigators conclude it would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him. These are obviously potentially very damaging in political terms, these characterizations. Biden's personal counsel refuted how the report characterized the president's memory.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer making a stop in Detroit today to talk to families and educators who might benefit from her newly unveiled state budget proposal. The governor took a tour of the Detroit Parent Network. She spoke about her $80 billion budget proposal, which includes $0 health premiums for children and free pre-K education for every 4-year-old in Michigan. That last item struck a chord with one great-grandmother in attendance.
I stand here before you with 13 great-grands, and I'm responsible for right now caring for 3. So Miguel is 10, which will be leaving and going into the middle school sector. So this program actually that the governor is initiating is really, I wish, was available when he was in preschool, because pre-K really hits your pocket hard.
A lot of people can probably relate to that. The governor says she's not concerned about political gridlock affecting the passing of the budget. In fact, she hopes to get the budget passed early this time.
Well, what a day.
Oh, my goodness.
You cannot believe, right, that we are in the middle of February. Look at the sky and just, I mean, a whole bunch of people. We talked about people making the jump to shorts and,
That's right.
and T-shirts a little early. Understandable today.
That's right. We can see some of that. Let's get over to Ron Hilliard. He's in for Kim Adams today. It's almost scary how warm this is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are enjoying it, but it certainly does have some cons to it as well. Less ice on the lakes. Nature, of course, the rhythm of plants sometimes getting affected. Now, here's a look into downtown Detroit from a different angle. Sunset comes at 5:56. Detroit, we're coming in at 57 degrees. Same for Ann Arbor. We're looking at 55 for Port Huron, Monroe, 57 degrees. Now, this is after seeing temperatures getting up into around 60-degree territory in a lot of places. We do have some clouds in the area right now. And then looking off toward the west side of the state, a couple of showers. Those are going to try to make their way into our area, but we have some very dry air. So while there will be an isolated shower for some parts of the area, especially on the northern side of the region around 69 and north, we will see those temperatures out there mild tonight. More coming up on the record high warmth.